Hey there. If you've ever felt like financial planning is just this maze of confusing formulas, well, you're in the right place. We're going to go way beyond simple calculations to build a really powerful toolkit. It's a set of core skills that'll let you tackle pretty much any financial problem. So let's just jump right in with a question that trips almost everyone up. What happens when the real world doesn't follow a neat, predictable plan? I mean, let's be real, right? The world is messy. Your investment returns go up and down, your income might change, and your expenses are, well, they're never perfectly predictable. So how in the world do you plan for your financial future when the money coming in isn't just some simple, steady stream? So let's take a look at a classic example here. Imagine you have an investment that pays you $300 in year one, $600 in year two, and then $200 in year three. This is what we call an uneven cash flow stream. And trust me, it's way more common than you'd think. The big question is, what's this whole stream of cash actually worth at the end of year three? And that brings us to the very first tool in our new toolkit. Instead of getting overwhelmed by the whole thing, the secret is to break it down. We're going to tame these uneven cash flows by valuing them one single piece at a time. Here's the secret, okay? The real key is to treat every single payment like it's its own little separate investment. We'll just calculate the future value of each individual payment at our target date, which is the end of year three, and then all we have to do is add them up. It's that simple. All right, let's break this down. Assuming we've got a 10% rate of return, that first $300 payment, it has 2 full years to grow, so it becomes $363. The $600 payment has 1 year to grow, and that ends up at $660. And what about that final $200 payment? Well, it shows up right at our target date, so it has 0 time to grow. Its future value is just $200. So you just add those 3 future values together, and boom, there's your answer, $1,223. That's the power of just breaking a problem down. But, there's another factor that can seriously speed up that growth. All right, on to our second tool, and trust me, this one is an absolute game changer. It's not just about how much interest you earn, but how often that interest gets calculated and added back to your principal. This is what I like to call the compounding accelerator. Just look at this table. It shows you how a tiny, seemingly insignificant change can make a massive difference. If you invest $1,000 at 6%, annual compounding gets you $60. But if you compound that daily, you get $61.83. Now, that might not sound like a lot in 1 year, but over a lifetime of investing, this effect becomes the single most powerful engine for building wealth, period. Okay, to really see what's happening, let's just focus on the two extremes here. We've got the same investment, the same interest rate, but just by changing how often it compounds, you end up with extra money. The more compounding periods, the sooner your interest starts earning its own interest. It's literally free money. Okay, so our third and final tool. This one is all about flexibility. The really cool thing about these time value of money equations is that they're kind of like a Swiss Army knife. If you know most of the variables, like the interest rate, the time, the payment amount, you can always solve for the one you don't know. Let me show you how this works. Let's start with a situation pretty much all of us can relate to. Taking out a loan. Let's say you borrow $2,000. Using our toolkit, we can figure out the most important variable of all. What's the annual payment going to be? Okay, so let's plug in everything we know. The present value, that's the loan amount today, is $2,000. The term, or N, is 13 years, and the interest rate is 6%. That leaves us with a big question mark, the annual payment, or PMT. And the toolkit spits out the answer for us. The annual payment you'd need to make to pay off this loan is $225.92. We just solved for the missing piece of the puzzle. Okay, cool. Now let's flip the script and use the toolkit for a totally different goal, saving money. Imagine your goal is to save up $920, and you can put away $100 a year. This time, the unknown isn't the payment, it's the time. How long is this going to take? So just like before, let's lay out what we already know. Our future value, the target we're shooting for, is $920, our annual payment is $100, and our interest rate is 9%. The number of years, N, is the blank we need to fill in. And there it is. The math tells us it'll take exactly 7 years to hit that goal. See how powerful this is? We can solve for payments, time, interest rates, whatever piece of information we need to build a really solid financial plan. All right, you ready? It is time for the masterclass. We're going to take
everything we've just learned and put it all together to tackle a much more complex, multi-step problem. Something that feels a lot more like a real-world financial challenge. So, here's the setup. Picture this. 3 years from today, a brand new expense pops up. You're gonna need $1,000 a year for 5 years straight. The challenge is to figure out how much you have to save each year for the next 3 years to build up a fund big enough to cover that future obligation. The only way to tackle a problem like this is to break it down. We're gonna do this in 2 parts. First, we have to figure out the total pile of money we'll need 3 years from now. That's step 1. Then, once we have that target number, we can work backwards to calculate the annual payments needed to get there. That's step 2. And check it out. Here are the numbers. Step 1 tells us that to fund those 5 $1,000 payments, we're going to need a lump sum of $4,169.87 waiting for us at the end of year 3. Then, step 2 tells us that to save up that amount, we need to put away $1,259.78 each year for the next 3 years. Wow, we just solved a really complex future problem. So, after all that, what's the one big idea, the one core concept that makes all of this stuff possible? Well, it's a beautifully simple rule that's been powering every single calculation we've done today. It's something called the additivity principle. And all it really means is that you can figure out the value of any stream of cash. It doesn't matter if you're looking at its value today or its value in the future, by just valuing each individual piece. And then, you guessed it, adding them all up. It's the simple but incredibly powerful idea that is the foundation of modern finance. This quote from the source material really just says it all. You can slice and dice a financial problem any way that makes it easier to solve, just like we did with that uneven cash flow stream. The value of the pieces will always add up to the value of the whole, and that gives you amazing flexibility to analyze any financial situation. And that's really what this is all about. We've just built a toolkit to handle messy cash flows, to harness the power of compounding, and to solve for any missing piece of the puzzle. The tools are now in your hands. So the only question left is, what kind of financial future are you going to build?